Hey everyone, today we're going to talk to Peter. Peter heads Kinetica's quality assurance team, and he's going to be demoing some of Kinetica's security features. Um, yeah, Peter, do you want to add anything else about your work or anything else that you do?
Yeah, so one of the things, aside from Kinetica, I'm really involved with the one of the largest meetup groups in the Northeast Washington D.C. area. Everyone should check it out, especially if you're into agile software testing. It's dcast.io. You should check it out and join us, and you'll be in a really cool meetup group with more than 1,200 people who are really passionate about driving quality.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll make sure to provide a link to dcast.io in the video notes. Yeah, Peter, so maybe we can start with talking about some of the use cases for security and the kind of security features that Kinetica provides. Like, why would a company need it?
Yeah, so what I like to demo today, it's one of the security concepts that Kinetica has, and it's what they call a table level security. And so with table level security, using different roles and users, you can restrict what a certain role or user is capable of accessing, and you can do it on SQL tables based on rows and columns. And so the use case for this is to basically, if you want to lock down exactly what roles and users are able to access. And the demo I'm going to demonstrate is going to show both column and row security.
Awesome. So this might be one of the reasons why, say, if I call, say, my bank rep, and they're able to see only the last four, and they ask me to confirm the last four of my social security number, but they're not able to see the entire thing, right? That's probably...
Yeah, that's going to actually, we have that covered in the demo as well.
Awesome. Okay, so I'll get to see it in action. Yeah, so should we dive straight into the demo? Is that...
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, cool.
All right, so what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna log in into the center browser here, and I'm gonna wear the hat of an IT infrastructure IT admin.
Okay.
Let's log in as admin. And here the admin is going to be responsible for creating the schema or namespace and the tables that, in our example, the human resources would manage. So let's do that first. Okay? And one of the cool things about Kinetica is if you have a set of SQL queries that you know that you would always need, Kinetica allows you through the UI called Workbench to basically have what we call a workbook, which is a way for you to manage all your SQL queries. So what I'm going to do as the IT specialist, I'm going to upload a workbook that already has SQL queries that I'll need to create this namespace and tables. All right, and here's my little simple workbook. And you can see I have queries, 4 queries, and let's create the namespace and the tables that the HR team will need. So you can see I'm creating a table for, it's going to store all the employees, and there's another table for all their salaries. And another really cool feature is that Kinetica supports the notion of kind of like file spaces, shared file spaces. We call it KIFS. And here on Workbench, you can see we have a folder structure, and here you can create these folders where different users with the correct permissions can upload files. And with these files, other users can access them if they are also given granted permission. And from these files, you can do ingest, and I'll share that.
Okay. Awesome.
Right. And to create this folder, you could do it through the Workbench. So I'll create one. I'll create this one as Peter, for example. And you can see there's a folder called Peter. But you can also do it equally as easy with SQL. So I'm going to create a folder through SQL, and let's call this HR. Over here, here's our namespace, and our namespace is called our company, and here's the 2 tables that HR will manage, employees and salaries.
And so this is just the schema for those tables, and where you're going to manage all the employee information, like say phone number, I guess I'm seeing SSN and all these other things. Okay.
That's right, exactly.
Got it.
Okay. So here, the role of the IT admin is done.
Okay.
So now, let's go ahead and create the roles. And so as I said before, we're going to create a role for human resources. And the human resources role, we're going to allow them to manage that namespace, which was our co. So here we're going to type in the namespace, and all the tables that are part of that namespace, we want to give full access permissions to anyone that belongs to human resources.
Nice.
And
I have a quick question here, Peter. So if I wanted to give only access to a particular table and not the entire schema, is that possible as well?
Yes, you could do that. You could explicitly, selectively just pick one table if you like to.
And just, okay, got it.
As well. But in this case, we're going to give the human resources role full access to any table in the schema, our co. And we're also going to give full access to the folder, HR, that we created.
Yeah.
So now we created a role called human resources that have full access to the namespace, our co, and the folder HR. So let's create that. Great. So now that we defined this role called human resources, we'll want to create a user that's part of that role. And let's do that now. And we'll call this person Harry. Okay, and assign them the role human resources. Okay, let me create that. And so what I'll share here on this browser, we'll log in as Harry, who belongs to the human resources. And what we should see is that once Harry logs in, that he has full access to the namespace, as we see right here.
Nice.
As well as those tables. Okay. And let's take a quick peek at this table. And if we take a quick look, the table is empty, right?
Yeah.
So there's no tables in here. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to have Harry actually ingest some files for us. Okay, so let's do this. And here's a CSV file that he's going to upload. Okay, and we're also going to upload a CSV file that contains all the employees' salaries as well.
Yeah.
Okay, and now you can see the folder HR and the two files that Harry uploaded. All right, now that Harry uploaded both files, both CSV files, now let's ingest. And through Kinetica's workbench, it's really easy to ingest these files into their tables. So first, let's ingest employees. Okay, and we need to provide the schema. And let's pick the table here. Whoops, I'm clicking too quick. All right, so we're gonna ingest employees.csv into our table employees.
So this is assuming that the employees.csv has the same table definition as the rco.employees, right?
Yeah, so the CSV file is just a standard CSV file where the number of the columns match the table schema. So yes.
Got it.
And let's do the same with salaries. The salary CSV file, let's import that. Select our namespace and select our target table, salaries, and we can import that. All right, and so now that we imported it, let's take a sneak peek at those tables. And so you can see here, let me get this out of the way, that Harry, who's a admin, or he has full access because he was given the role human resources, can see all the employees' data, right? He can see their birth date, their employee ID, their phone numbers, cell phone numbers, everything. You can see everything about these users. And so let's also take a quick sneak peek at what Harry's able to see on a salaries table. And so he's able to see the user ID for each employee as well as their salary, right?
Yeah.
Which makes sense since Harry belongs to HR. Okay, so now so that's a quick demonstration of giving grants to a specific user based on role.
Yeah, and I have a question, Peter. So you did that via the UI, right? So we created the role for human resources and Harry via the user interface. Is it possible to do that using SQL?
Yes, absolutely. Kinetica supports everything I just shared with you on granting permissions using roles and users via SQL as well.
Nice.
So for all the admins out there who would want to automate, collective series of granting permissions to users and roles, all that can be automated since we support SQL.
Awesome.
Okay. Now, in the next part of this demo, I'm going to demonstrate how you can restrict the behavior on what other roles are able to access using obfuscation, hashing, based on column and rows. And we'll do that by creating another role, and we'll call that engineering. And so the role engineering will limit on what they get to see. Okay, so we'll create an engineering role. Okay, and let's create a user that belongs to the engineering team. Bob Jones. All right, and just like this, Bob Jones is now in the engineering team. And before I do anything, let's log in as Bob Jones and see what he's able to do or able to access.
So he shouldn't be able to access anything, right?
That's right. He shouldn't be able to see any of the data that we've just created. So we're logged in as Bob Jones. And if you look here, he's unable to access the namespace of our code. Okay. And so what if we wanted to provide anyone who belongs in an engineering team to have access to their fellow employees? That would be great, but there's an issue with that, right? We don't want those users that are part of the engineering team to see sensitive data, like for example, Social Security and salaries. So how can we do that? And that's where column row security comes in. Okay. And so again, we're going to log in the center as admin, and the admin is going to implement these column row security commands to restrict the engineering team from seeing specific data.
Okay.
All right, so let's create, we don't have one. So I'll go back to my worksheet, and I think, if I remember, let me try to enter the correct series of commands to make that happen. All right, so I think we're going to grant select on table, here's a namespace, employees to the engineering team. And this is really interesting right here. So we want anyone from the engineering team to be able to see their salaries. Whoops, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Let's.
Oh.
No. Let's see. All right. Let's let them see their fellow employees' information, right? But we want them to be able to see their first name, for example, right? We'll allow them to see the last name. But let's say for this purpose, we don't want to give out the cell phone number.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe that's too sensitive. So we don't want, so we'll obfuscate it or hash it, right?
Yeah.
And maybe we do want them to see a partial view of the social security number, right?
Yeah.
And so let's use hash to do that. Okay.
And do you need a comma between the 7 and the...
Yes, good eyes. Okay, let's see if I typed it in right. Okay, and so here, let's check it out. So here we said anyone that belongs to the engineering team is only allowed or limited to see the first name, the last name. They're able to see the cell phone number, but it's hashed.
So they're able to see that the cell phone exists, but not see the actual number itself.
That's right, yep.
Okay.
And the same for the social security number, but we're gonna actually mask the social security number except for the last 4 digits.
Yeah.
Okay. And so if you remember here, this is our engineer, Bob Jones, and let's refresh. And look, he now has access to those tables because he was just granted.
Yeah.
Okay, and there's employees, so he has access to the employees table. But let's look at his view compared to the Harry's from Human Resources. Yeah. So you can see that he does indeed see the first and last name. He only gets to see the last 4 digits of this SSN. And here you can see this is not the actual phone number, but a hash value of the cell phone number. And so this is a simple example of column row security.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Yep. And the other counterpart that I want to share is, what if Bob wanted to see salaries? That makes sense. But of course, we don't want Bob from engineering to see everyone's salary, right? And so
yeah, we don't want Bob to know that his colleagues are getting paid more than him.
yeah, that's right. And so that's going to be an example of row security, right? Where we're going to limit which rows Bob is allowed to access. So let me see if I can demonstrate that. So we'll add another grant statement where we can say grant select on table, again, our code is salaries. And this is really neat. So we're going to grant the ability to select on the salaries table to engineering. However, we're going to limit that select or restrict it where the user ID matches the currently logged in user.
Oh, do you need a where clause there?
Yes. Good eyes. Okay.
Nice.
All right, so we're already logged in as Bob Jones. So let's refresh. There's a salaries table. And if you recall, Harry from HR has the ability, since they were granted pretty much admin access, if they were to access the salaries because they are in HR,
yeah,
they're capable of seeing all the users and their salaries.
Yeah.
Now Bob, who belongs to engineering, will get a different view once I'm able to control my mouse here. And so you can see here, Bob was limited through row security, where he would only be able to see retrieve records that matched his user ID. So
nice.
In this use case, he can only see his own salary and not others. And that's an example of row security.
Awesome. It's pretty simple to implement as well.
Yes, yeah, very easy to do.
So just to, I guess, reiterate what you just did. So the first query was implementing column security, right?
That's right.
And the second is implementing row security, where you're saying if your user ID of the current user, if the current user's user ID matches a particular row in a table, then show that row.
Yep.
Right? And we could potentially have, say, some other list instead of the current underscore user. We could say if they're in this particular group. Or even, so I have another question, which I guess, is it possible to add these roles to the employees table itself?
Yes, you could do that as well.
Right? And then you could sort of grant to groups within that. Like you could just sort of match on that, right?
That's right.
Got it. Awesome. This is neat. Is there, sorry, is there anything more that we wanted to cover in this?
No, everything I just shared with you. If you go to Kinetica.com and go to the docs page and search on security, everything related to table level security and much more, you can anyone can go there and read up about the different security models that Kinetica has.
Awesome. And we'll be sharing. So Peter, could we share these the data and the workbook as well in a GitHub repo?
Yep, we'll put this on GitHub or Bitbucket for anyone who wants to try it out for themselves, that they have all the workbooks, all the queries that we just shared.
Awesome. So I'll put the link in the video description as well. This is awesome, Peter. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to set this up and demo this for us.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Thanks for having me, Harry.